other than we'll have to wait. Look to your right hand side for the Jet Provost and Strikemaster. So again, one of our anniversary themes, an incredible 65 years of the Jet Provost. What we have on display for you in the air is 2 Jet Provosts and a Strikemaster, which was the counter-insurgency light attack version of the Jet Provost Mark 5. And hopefully you've had a walk around some of the aircraft we have on the ground. If my memory serves me right, we have 5 other Jet Provosts in there and also a Piston Provost.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating story that's traced by that static line, starting off with the piston-engined Provost, the Provost T4, and then that incredible-looking, stalkily undercarriaged, if that's a phrase, Mark 1 Jet Provost. The idea at that time, of course, was to make flying training in the RAF an all-jet affair once you'd gone through that ab initio stage on, say, the Chipmunk. And so Percival, or Hunting Percival as it later became, developed a jet from the basis of the piston-engined Provost. And the first flight of the Jet Provost T4 was on the 26th of June 1954 from Luton Airport in the hands of Dick Weldon, so 65 years ago, later this month.
And that was a real evolutionary step to actually consider at that stage in the early 50s to have jet-only training. That's a hell of a thing to think about.
It really is, isn't it? And of course, this is relatively early in the jet age. The first operational jet, the Gloucester Meteor, had only come into RAF service 10 years earlier. You think how far things have come in the last 65 years. And so it was that the Mark 1 Jet Provost came into use very, very successfully, and they found that students were going solo more rapidly on the Jet Provost, even though you'd think it would be more complex than the Piston one, than they had on the Piston Provost.
And of course what the Mark 1 introduced, and then was obviously carried through all the Marks of Jet Provost, was the side-by-side seating. We talked a lot about tandem seating, where student and instructor sit one behind each other. Of course in this, it's like in your car, you sit side by side. And just about everyone you talk to has a different opinion on, I like side by side. No, I like tandem.
Yeah, one former Jet Provost instructor I spoke to a couple of years ago, Paul Warren Wilson, who heads up plain sailing with their Catalina flying boat at Duxford. He said he liked side by side, and he very much liked the Jet Provost. Some people say it was rather underpowered, but he said the performance was fine. Quite a lot of grass airfields, particularly as relief landing grounds at the times, and they could give a few problems with the quite flimsy-looking undercarriage in terms of breakages. So they went then on the Mark III, which we're going to be seeing shortly, for a more conventional, much shorter arrangement. Time, and they strengthened the wings and gave it the tip tanks, which we can see on this. This is the Mark III in front of us. And this is a really nice one to have in a flying display. It dates from 1961, and during its time with the Central Flying School, it operated with their aerobatic team, the Red Pelicans, and it's been put back into the colours of that team, which was one of so many RAF teams with the Jet Provost.
Yes, I have a very, 5 minutes research threw up about 20 different teams, but the Redskins that then became the Red Pelicans, the Gin 4, the Blades, that sounds familiar.
Yes.
The Vipers, and then also of course Team Viper, just 10 years or so ago.
Strikemaster, yes.
The Gemini pair, the Swords, the Magistrates, the Macaws, and the Lincolnshire Poachers.
And there was
a target drone called the Jidvig. And the Jidvig would get shot down. That was sort of the idea. So why are you going to spend a lot of money developing an engine with a lifespan of thousands of hours when its expected life is just a handful? So Armstrong Siddeley had to do a little bit of reverse engineering to try and make that engine more reliable, and they did a fine job, because that engine went on to power other aircraft, including one that is permanently outside the museum, the RAF version of the HS-125, the Dominic.
Absolutely, yeah, one of the most successful of all the British jet engines. Rolls-Royce held an anniversary celebration some years back at Coventry Airport, I think it was, for the Viper, and an enormous range of different types was brought together. British Aircraft Corporation absorbed Hunting Aircraft in 1960, and they developed the one we now got in front of us, the Jet Provost T5. And the big difference here, apart from another uprated Viper engine, a pressurised cockpit to enable them to train at higher altitudes. They strengthened the wings as well, and the RAF bought 110 of these. This one was built at the BAC plant at Wharton in Lancashire, now one of the main BAE Systems factories. It was delivered to the RAF.
So when the Jet Provost finally left RAF service back in 1993, the aircraft that replaced it was of course the Tucano, which we were lucky enough to enjoy a display an hour and a half or so. The exhaust gases themselves providing the thrust. There's a kind of impeller blade system in the jet efflux that turns the shaft and turns the propeller on the front.
Corporation saw the potential to create a dedicated light attack version, which they would sell to countries that couldn't afford to buy or operate more complex military jets. So they strengthened the airframe, gave it extra armour protection, again uprated the Viper engine, and crucially added underwing weapons hardpoints.
And once again, we have a little bit of history repeating itself, again with the Tucano, because Tucano started life as a basic trainer, but of course has also, in various versions now, can carry weapons, Super Tucano and so on. It's still a very important military role, this kind of counterinsurgency, maybe slow flying above a battlefield with not necessarily a particularly heavily armed aircraft, but an aircraft that can do some damage if it has to.
Yes, and of course one of the rationales behind that now is why wait to say an F-22 or an F-35 in a counterinsurgency fight when you could be operating a light attack aircraft. Now there are various opinions as to that. Of course in this case it was countries that at that time wouldn't have been able to afford a high-end fighter. Saudi Arabia, that's no longer the case. They were particularly with Oman. And there's the JP3 in once again. In fact, 3 Strikemasters of what was then the Sultan of Oman's Air Force, now the Royal Air Force of Oman, was shot down during the Dhofar Rebellion. We get a chance to see the 3 aircraft all passing through to show the evolution of the line. Here's the Strikey at the back.